Ali Marie Diamond is a co-founder of the survivor-led organisation Wahine Toa Rising, a mum and a Memar. Wahine Toa Rising is a member of the Coalition for the Abolition of Prostitution, CAP International, of which Ali Marie is also a board member. She is soon to be a host on Red Light Expose, an international survivor-led circle which formed in 2023 to combat the growing acceptance and endorsement of sex work ideology. Ali Marie will also be letting us know about the documentary currently touring Australia called Buying Her. Ali, can we have a chat about what you're doing at the moment with Wahine Toa Rising? And could you tell me about the situation in Queensland?
Absolutely. So thank you for having me. It's always an honour to be here with you all. So right now the situation in Queensland is the Attorney General, our latest one, has tabled the full decrim bill here and now goes to a committee before it is voted on. Last year, the police powers to prosecute street solicitation was removed. Prostitution or the sex trade in Queensland is legalised. Yeah, it's not much of a switch from where it is now into full decriminalisation, but we're still trying to work really, really hard to just keep it out, especially with the Olympic Queensland hosting the Olympic Games in 2032. We know that when there's big events like this, and the demand is there, the sex trafficking increases, as does the exploitation of vulnerable women and girls. So submissions are now being taken into the inquiry of the Queensland Prostitution Bill. The deadline is the 8th of March. So if anyone would like to write a submission, we're encouraging everyone from everywhere, globally, international, everywhere, to write a submission. So I can provide that link to Janet for everyone if you like after the meeting.
And so have you been writing submissions and speaking to politicians? What have you been doing?
But since the beginning of last year, we have been writing letters to members of parliament, writing to the Attorney General. Last year it was Shannon Fentiman, this year Yvette Das, doing everything that we possibly can to secure meetings with both Attorney Generals. But not surprisingly, we haven't been able to get in there. We've gone into Parliament and met with members of Parliament at a forum last year in Brisbane. That was not a great experience. It was really tough. I learned in that moment that we only have one house in Queensland. So there isn't as much accountability, I suppose, as there are in other states with upper house and lower house. And a lot of them on the Labor side were saying, look, there's nothing we can do. Even though we don't agree with it, we can't do anything about it, because if we do, then we're likely to get kicked out. So it was a very frustrating forum. Came away very discouraged, but have still been pushing on and still writing letters and trying to get meetings with members and especially with the Attorney Generals.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough that women have to take their trauma and speak to politicians who are somehow unaware, unwilling, denying the fact that the sex trade just means trauma for women, and women have to go and talk about it in order to try and prevent trauma for other women.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about what's happening in South Australia as well?
Yeah, so South Australia is last year a member, Nicola Centifanti, and I keep forgetting to ask her how to pronounce it. I think it's Nicola Centifanti or Centifanti, I'm not sure which one, but she tabled the Equality Bill last year. Incredibly brave member of Parliament, incredibly courageous. I have so much respect and admiration for her. So that was tabled in South Australia last year. We've been working really, really hard with upper house members, because that's where it's sitting at the moment. And we didn't quite have the numbers for it to go to vote last year. So we've been working on getting those numbers this year. So I can't tell you exactly when it's going to vote, but it looks like somewhere towards the end of March.
Right. Okay. So what could the women here do to support you in South Australia?
So we have a few members down there that we really do need to, I guess, put some pressure on to vote the right way. So I'm more than happy to provide those emails too if anyone is feeling compelled or called to write to these members. I think the more pressure that they have, the better. I think that the more they know that there's people out there who care and who support the Equality Mill and support Nicola, the better as well. So I can definitely provide some emails for that if anyone would like to write to them. I think that's the best support at the moment. Once it goes into lower house, I'm very hopeful, then we'll have a whole new bunch of things that you'll be able to do.
That's great. And I've written to Nicola. I sent her an email saying thank you and we love your work. Please keep it up. It must be really tough.
It's amazing.
So can you tell us a bit about Buying Her, which I think women can buy tickets for all capital cities or most?
Yep, most capital cities. So they start their screening in Auckland on the 28th of February. Then they're going to Tauranga, and then Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide. You can get the details for all the screenings on www.buyingher.com. We just had a press release come out, so I will give you a bit of an idea. I have seen the movie. It's brilliant. Buying Her is the first ever documentary to explore the lives of sex buyers and what drives them. It takes on the critical issue of ending the demand that fuels the global issue of sex trafficking and exploitation. It is focused on sex buyers in the United States, but as we know, sex buyers are pretty much the same in any country. They're not different in one country to another country. They're the same across the board. Through deeply insightful first-hand accounts, the film lays bare their journey from their childhood exposure to pornography to becoming hardened predators and ultimately to what turned their lives around. The powerful real stories captured in Buying Her are a beacon of hope for the restoration of broken and hurt men, accountability for those who have done harm to others, and bringing about the end of sex trafficking and exploitation for good. I have seen the documentary. It's a very powerful documentary that really links pornography, the purchasing of women and girls into sexual violence outside of pornography and the sex trade. And I think those links are really important. Too often at the moment in Australia and New Zealand, there is no links between sex trafficking and exploitation of women and sexual violence. They all seem to be very separate topics. You know, you have one law for sex trafficking, another law for sex trade, another law for sexual violence. What's missing is the links between them all. And there are very clear links there if we just, somehow can join the dots and show people that they're there.
Yeah, the pimp lobby has been very effective in creating the idea that trafficking is bad, but the sex trade is great.
Yeah. You ask one person, they'll say to me, oh yeah, but your story is different, you were sex trafficked. And then you ask another person and they'll say, oh yeah, but you only ended up like that because of the childhood sexual abuse. And then you'll ask someone else and they'll go, oh yeah, but you chose to be there. So there's no, there's very blurred lines between everything.
Yeah. And just lastly, Ali, could you tell us a bit about Red Light Expose?
Yeah, so last year I was invited by Ali Arrow, who is an amazing feminist in Germany, who does a lot of writing and speaks out a lot about the sex trade and full decriminalisation, things that are happening in Germany and in New Zealand, and also Andrea Hines, who is in Canada, I believe. And they were starting a great podcast called, and now completely, what's it called again, Janet? I've just had a mind blank. But we
can put it in the chat because
yeah,
Ali will find
It's very new, but it's about, I guess, debunking all the myths that are out there at the moment around the sex trade, like sex workers' work and all those things. So it's a new podcast that will be specifically focused on debunking those myths, which is very exciting.
Fantastic. That's really great. Podcasts are so awesome, particularly for women to listen to. All right. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us, Ali Marie Diamond?
No, is there anything else you'd like me to share? I guess I also want to say, Wahine Toa Rising is a survivor-led organisation, but it's important to know that any survivors that are speaking out, they all do it through volunteering, and because we have a strong passion to make sure that no other women and girls go through what we have been through, to somehow try and make a difference, not just for vulnerable women and children, but our own future generations, women and girls everywhere, and especially boys and men, to start changing that narrative and those society rules of so many 18-year-olds used to come into the brothel when they were 18. It was like it was a rite of passage. So changing, I guess, those cultural beliefs. But it's important that any survivors you have, you support them and you love on them and you nurture them, because they relive everything that they're going through every time they speak, every time they do this work, each time they advocate. It just chips away a little bit more, of their soul, through reliving it. So Wahine Toa Rising is survivor-led, but we are, there's only a handful of survivors. So if anyone feels called to support us in any way, whether it might be on the board or helping us with our social media or our press releases, anything that can support us to be allowed a voice, we would really, really appreciate it, because we are doing it tough at the moment.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate your work, and I have a small window of insight from what you shared into how grueling it is to be constantly re-traumatizing yourself to try and prevent it happening to other women. So thank you. Thank you very much. So
Thanks for having me.
Anytime.